How's it going, guys? And in this video we're going to be talking about how you can do unit tests in Python, and specifically we're going to be using a package called PiTest, and it makes the process very simple. And so what I'm going to do is walk through an example in which I'm trying to add some logic to a Python project to be some kind of calculator. And so what I have here is a new Python project. I've got a file called ops.py for operations, and I've already written up some methods here. I'm going to have an add method that basically adds numbers together, a subtract, a multiply and divide methods to do what we expect them to do. And so I've already written the logic in here, and I'm going to, in addition to that, define a new file in here, a new Python file, and I'm going to call this file test_ops.py. And it's very important that you have the test underscore prefix, because that's how PiTest will know that it needs to run and treat this file like a test. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this first line here. It says from ops import and then star, and that basically tells it to import everything that I've defined in this ops Python file right here. So all those methods I just defined are going to get included in here. We need to do that because in our test file we need to be able to actually test the stuff we want to test, right? I've already written these tests right here, and so what I want to make note of is that I basically will also prefix the name of my test with the test underscore and then the method name that we're testing. So in our case we're testing the add method. We're not taking any arguments here, but we are calling the assert keyword in Python. And so basically what that's going to say is that we're saying on line 4 here that when I call the add method with 2 and 3 as parameters, I'm expecting to get 5 as a result. And so if I don't get 5, then I need to throw some kind of error. And we're doing the same exact things for the other 4 methods that I've defined. And so now that we've done that, I'm going to open up a terminal, and it's going to be located at the Python project directory. And if you don't already have it installed, I'm going to install it right now. So I'm going to run the command pip install PiTest, just like that. And it's going to download. And there you go. And so running PiTest from inside of your project directory is very simple. Python-m PiTest. And that is how you're actually supposed to run it. So you need to prefix it with Python. So you're invoking Python before you're calling PiTest. And so while this is a good way of running it, you'll get these little dots. These green dots means that it ran 4 tests. So we're seeing 4 green dots, and that means that all 4 of those tests passed. And if you're like me and you're someone who wants to log the results of your tests, that is something that you can configure. So if you modify your command slightly, so it's python-m PiTest and then -- and you're going to do JUnit XML, and now you're going to define a file to persist the report that comes from PiTest to. And so in my case, in my project, I'm going to create a new directory, and I'm going to call this PiTest report, test reports. And then inside of here, so I'm going to say test_reports and then / PiTest_report.xml. And so now what's going to happen is that when this command runs, it is going to run those tests. We're going to see from our shell that everything passed, but in addition to that, it's going to create this XML report here too. And so if I enable soft wrap, we can see a bit more of this stuff, and so we get a nice little log report to go with our actual Python unit test as well, which is pretty good. Now what I want to do is I'm going to purposely induce an error. So let's say our method is up and running and all of our unit tests are passing, which is great, but unfortunately someone comes in here and does something mean to us, like changes our logic. So I'm going to add 1 in our subtract method, and I'm going to subtract 3 from our divide method. And so when I do this and I rerun that command that we just did, so python-m PiTest, and I run it just like that, we're now going to get these build failed errors. And so that's a good thing, because our tests 2 of them are now failing, and we can see the exact tests that failed. So we're going to see that the test subtract method failed and the test divide method failed because we are getting incorrect values from what we were expecting, because we've defined what we expected to see inside of the testops.py file here. And so because we're not getting that, the tests are failing. And then in addition to that, if we look at our test report right here, you can see that we get a little bit more information in a slightly more readable format to see where exactly is the issue here. And so we can see that, you know, if you're debugging this and you're wondering why after you made some code changes your tests are failing, it does tell you right here that the divide test and the subtract test are failing. So you'd have to go back to here, double check that, you know, your actual assertions are reasonable, and if they are, then you'd go in here and you would correct those errors. I'll just correct one of them to see, you know, let's say we fixed the bug and then accidentally we created a new bug, and then we're just going to rerun this command. I'm just sitting up on the arrow pad, and now, you know, it's passing, but it is failing, and we can see that it's failing that multiply method. So I have to go back in here, fix that bug, go back, run it, and now we can see that we're on the happy path and we've got all of our unit tests passing. So very brief introduction to what PiTest does. I hope you guys find this stuff useful. Let me know if any questions, and be well.